That talking about housing here brings me to you, Mr. Jede. That journey from the last edition of the summit, with the recommendations, it's talked about the things that have been achieved since that summit. What are we hoping to achieve? What do you think can be achieved with this? Again, and I know Mr. Kwefa talked about this, but let's tie it back again to the fact that even if, when the private sector comes into this part, into powering Lagos, they'll still need to have access to the national grid.
Yes, there will be need to have access to the national grid because of the way it's still structured as it is now. But the first thing, foremost, is that the private investors should come in, and which they have already. So we are waiting for the results of their coming in to come in. So at that time, I think liaising or working with the national grid, they will still have to stand on their own, but they need to work with the national grid to some extent before they can build on their own, because it takes a lot of investment before they can divest from the national grid. But that linked to housing, aside the fact that we need to produce more houses, we still need to look at what energy does with the housing. I look at it that a healthy nation is a wealthy nation. What does priority does, what it does in the houses? We're talking about carbon emissions everywhere. If you have effective powering, we have as much as carbon emissions we are having now, and the health of the people will be of better nature. Yeah. Virtually every house, I'll start from your own house to my own house, everybody has generators. Some even have up to 3 generators in their house, and they all emit smokes, and then we all inhale all these things. And then even talk about the heat that it generates these days. You look at the climatic condition. These are the effects of what comes out of the fact that we don't have power. So when we have power, the health of the people will be better. The economy itself, it will be better because more jobs will be created. People don't have to use their money to continue to buy diesel for the generator. They will have access to good ventilation in their houses. The noise pollution will be lower. The environmental pollution will be lower. So powering the homes is very, very important. From the last summit to this summit, we have looked at it, and we have come to the summit to find that private investors are coming in, and we need to ensure that there's a good powering of Lagos.
Okay, Mr. Kwefa, 2000, we looked at economic growth through private sector. 2001, urban development, economic growth, and social responsibility. 2002, Lagos megacity and the challenge of economic development. 2004, transforming Lagos into Africa's smaller megacity. 2008, Lagos, investment opportunities in Africa. 2012, 2010, I don't have that one, but 2012, 2012, looked at agriculture, and now power. In all of these things...
2012 was part Lagos old.
Okay.
That is from bricks to bricks.
Okay, from bricks to bricks.
That is part.
Okay.
Agri-power.
Now, in all of this, the power sector, power plays a major role in all of these things have been lined out from 2000. So what would the recommendations that will come from this, how would these recommendations be managed? Just so that we can see an effective change, because this is now the key focus.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me put it in this perspective. If you look from 2000 to date, you will see a trend that the theme had been so structured to move from one point of development to the next point of sustainability. And the next point, you move from that sustainability point to the next level of sustainability. Now, if you take from last year, and when we discussed power, agri, transport, and housing, and there were so many recommendations. I know very much in the transport sector that we are 12. And out of the 12, we have resolved to almost normal level 10. The remaining 2 are ongoing, that is things that we cannot do right as an immediate thing. Now, when you look at the role of power, I want to link all together now. Just like Commissioner for Housing mentioned, power for now in Nigeria is mainly from hydro, and then you have the one coming from the diesel and gas burning. And at 3,000, sometimes it fluctuates between 3,000 to 4,000 megawatts production. You cannot effectively power the economy. Now, the implication for agriculture will be on preservation and then new technologies. The implication in housing will be for manufacturing those housing, household appliances, structures, infrastructure that will make the housing. So you have a cost ineffectiveness if power is not adequate. When you get to the area of transportation, efficient transportation will move the economy. It determines the link of all the factors of production, the men, the machine, and the money. Now, when you have an effective power supply, then you can now be able to transform that you have produced using power from the agri sector, that energy in the home appliances, you will now be able to transform the factors of production and the people to link them to their jobs. People are talking of electric cars. It might interest you to know that the housing sector and the transport sector consume most of the energy, and they produce the most of the gaseous emission gases. Now, if you have an effective power supply, then I can now effectively use that electricity power that is available, not burning diesel now in my house. I can now have electric cars. I can now do my integrated multimodal system powered by a system I can trust, not by burning diesel. I can now have my ticketing system to be reliable. I can now talk of an assembly plant that will produce for me the vehicles that will sustain my mass transit. I can't have a sustainable mass transit system if I don't have an assembly plant that has a reasonable priced power. Now, that takes us to this suggestion of taking Lagos as an isolation. No, it's not an isolation. The power sector is now deregulated. It has been divided into different discos, the various power generations and the power distribution companies. So it's not as if the Lagos power we're talking of is an isolation away from these discos and the distribution points or the transmission point. So whichever way the power comes, what Lagos is saying that we need an adequate amount of power, the opportunities for that power to be realized is there, and the potentials to utilize it we have. And the possibilities that can come from this is endless. So for me and for us in the transportation sector, the ideal now is to use train, mass transit. That needs electricity. If you don't have adequate power, then we have to build an IPP at an extra cost. Or you have to start using diesel-powered train system. For us in the transportation sector, the world is now moving to electric-powered mass transit buses. If that is not available, we'll continue to produce over 24% of the greenhouse gaseous emissions that destroys the atmosphere. So what we're saying in essence is that from the last conference where we identified those 4 critical sectors to power our economy forward, we've now gone to the next level where we need to sustain those 4 critical sectors and power becomes key in this sector.
All right, there are about 6 plenary sessions that are planned for this year's summit. The first one is focusing on how can electricity delivery to Lagos be accelerated. We have people drawn from the different sectors there to talk. Beyond the 6 plenary, what other sessions are there going to be?
We have our own session, the agric session, transportation session, and the housing session.
Which is born out of this plenary?
One of 6. They are part of the 6. Investor sectors.
And who can attend this summit?
If you are, it's more of a public-private sector-driven summit. That is how it's been designed, and that is how it is to date. And this is the 7th one, where we have the chairman. We have 2 chairmen. There is a co-chairman and there is a main chairman. So the chairman is the Commissioner for Economic Planning and Budget, Mr. Ben Akabuze, and the co-chairman is the MD of Stanbic IBTC. So generally, it's a mixed bag of private and public sector. And what we are doing as government, we initiated it with the support of the private sector. And we believe globally, if we really want inclusive growth, you understand, and for wealth to be created, you need the private sector to support the public. It's not going to complement the public. It's not going to be only the private sector or only the public sector. We have a lot of reports or studies have shown that it is going to be a PPP thing for any economy, is sustainable development to happen. And that is why this economic summit is very key. If you are in the agri sector, come on board. If you are in the transportation sector, you are also invited. If you are in the housing development, the floor is also open to everyone. And if you are an NGO, I mean, non-governmental organization, the civil society, you are also invited to be one of the